Welcome to the Turn on the Music podcast. This is episode 3. And as always, I am joined by my good friend CJ. How are you today?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm good. It's an exciting episode. This is our first interview episode, and we have my good friend Rachael with us. Rachael, how are you today?
I am well, thank you.
That's excellent. So Rachael and I met at church, actually, and she played cello for a piece in that the choir was singing, and my jaw dropped to the floor, and I was like, "This cello sounds amazing. I need to find a way to play with her." And we eventually did. We did some duets for Christmas, and we did some for like the summer, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
And then I eventually helped her out playing in her bell choir, and So what I love about Rachael is I love her outlook on music, and that's kind of what we want to talk about. But before we get into that, I want to know what you guys are listening to every day, like during the week. So Rachael, are you listening to anything in particular?
My oldest son is a freshman in high school, so I currently have a Micah playlist of the music he introduces me to. So currently I'm listening to various rap songs by The Weeknd and NF, because that's what he's into. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What about you, CJ? What are you listening to these days?
I have been on the John Williams kick, so I've been listening to a lot of the movie themes. And
Is it
I've been searching
because of the new album, or have you gone to the other older stuff?
I've kind of gone to the
album?
older stuff because I couldn't get past some of the stuff on the new album. But I've been listening to that and some like sci-fi orchestral stuff.
Interesting.
And then you introduced me to, and I can't remember his name, but
Mingo Fish Trap.
What was it? Say it again.
Mingo Fish Trap.
He was good. Funk.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. It was a nice ride home. Different music. So
yeah, he's from Texas somewhere. I forget where, but he's funk and soul, and he's got a little like rap, hip hop in there, and some interesting stuff.
Yeah, it was a cool mix.
Yep. I've been listening to Jordan Rudess lately. He is the keyboard player for Dream Theater.
Okay.
So it's a lot of progressive rock, and the album I was listening to today it was like his stuff, but set to orchestra. And,
okay.
The cool thing about him is he has a very orchestral mind. So when he's improvising, a lot of it sounds like an orchestra, even though it's just piano. So the way he layers his stuff is pretty impressive. He's also come out with like several like instruments, like iPad instruments that like sound like guitar and stuff, that uses like the touch sensitivity, and as you move and use the pressure on the iPad, it changes the pitch. So he's a really brilliant guy. He's got more albums than I thought he did, so it's really interesting.
Is he one of the original?
I believe he's one of the original members.
So he's from
Smithtown, I think.
Smithtown, yes.
Yeah,
They're all from Smithtown and St. James,
He went to Juilliard, studied piano at Juilliard, and the singer, I can't remember his name, he was an opera singer from Juilliard.
Yes.
He was trained operatically. And John Petrucci is from Smithtown as well. And I remember when I was working at Cornet Music, John came in, with his blacked out Mercedes and his leather pants and his chain, carrying his daughter's gold-plated flute.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it was fun giving him a hard time about his flute, and his little black leather getup, but he's a really nice guy and an amazing guitarist. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all from Long Island, pretty much, most of them.
Yeah, and Smithtown was interesting because we would get, hey, the guys from Dream Theater across the street having pizza, or Mick Foley's across the street having pizza.
Right.
So
yes,
Mick Foley, the wrestler,
yes.
He was from St. James. So that was all. He was always, across the street from us, which was cool. So, yeah. So let's get started. So Rachael and CJ have never met before. It's they're a lot alike, I think, musically. Because they're both kind of classically trained, and they've started. So we'll get into the instrumentalists. So Rachael, what drew you to music?
Oh my goodness. My parents drew me to music before I even knew what it was, because they decided that I should play an instrument when I was 3. And so I started on the cello at the age of 3, almost 4.
Okay.
And so, I don't know life without it. It's literally been a part of my life as long as I can remember.
Do you have perfect pitch?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Relative?
I have relative pitch,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
but I don't have perfect pitch.
Okay, I did a lot of like study on perfect pitch, and a lot of instrumentalists who start before the age of 5 tend to have perfect pitch. And did you start with Suzuki, or
I
was
did.
you did?
I am the product of the Suzuki method, and I owe a lot to that method.
Yep.
So
And I find that the Suzuki method has their instrumentalists have much better ears than most. So, I know that you sing and you play instruments, but do you consider yourself an instrumentalist or a singer?
oh, an instrumentalist. Yeah.
And as far as your instruments, what instruments do you play?
The cello, and then I took piano lessons for a while. The piano is I enjoy playing it just when I'm stressed out. I'm not that great at piano, but it's fun because there's always more I can learn. So I enjoy learning more piano stuff. And then I have 3 kids, and they all play instruments. And so my oldest son is a violinist, so I play a lot of violin with him. So I'm pretty proficient on the violin. And then my youngest son is a violist. So I don't actually have a viola, but I've learned through his taking lessons how finally to read alto clef. It took me until I was like 40 to learn that.
I hate alto clef.
I know.
I hate tenor clef. I hate all of them.
Cellos read tenor, so I was
Yeah,
fine with that.
yeah.
But the alto was the one that I was holding out on. So, and then when I was in college, I learned just some very basic chords on guitar, so I can play some chording on guitar. And then in the past year and a couple months, I have taken up the banjo, and that is my newest endeavor.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What made you start learning the banjo? Just
Oh my gosh. So it's an instrument that I've always been drawn to. In fact, the very first gift my husband ever gave me when we were dating was this CD called Son of Rounder Banjo. It's just this like collection of banjo artists playing pieces, and he got it for me because I like wouldn't stop talking about the banjo even back then. And so I just like it. I like the sound of it. I've always liked the sound of it. And then actually somebody at our church that Kyle, you and I both knew, was sick with ALS, and he was a bass player for the Cincinnati Symphony, and he lost the ability to play through the course of the illness. And watching him and having a relationship with him, just finally I was like, what am I waiting on to learn this instrument? Like I've been saying for 20 years, I want to learn this instrument. Now's the time. My kids are old enough. I can do it now. And so I did. So I decided to start January 1st of 2021. And I practiced every day but 2 for the entire calendar year.
and you traveled during that year.
Traveled, took the banjo with me. Yep. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I chronicled the journey on a YouTube channel, making like monthly videos called the Banjo Diaries. So you could like watch my progress as I
Yeah,
went
and
throughout
we'll
the year.
we'll put a link to the Banjo Diaries in the show notes. So if you're interested in checking it out and watching the growth, I have to tell you that one of the things I mentioned it, I think was it last week, that I've always wanted to learn the guitar. Watching Rachel grow on the banjo is inspiration for me to try to pick up the guitar again. I haven't yet.
Yeah.
So you haven't picked one of the 5 that are behind you
I
up yet?
know. There's so many here.
No, I leave them there in case my friends come over and say, "Hey, you've got guitars." And I go, "Yeah, play one so I can record it." That's why they sit there. But they sit there. They're not in tune. They probably all need string changes, but yeah. So,
Can I follow up with? I have a question.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, jump in, please jump in.
So you sing as well. Did you vocally train? Is it just something that you were able to do and it's just natural? Like, is there anything that you've done with it outside of just like training on the instruments? Did you train your voice?
Not other than I took some choir in school growing up, and I was in church choirs at various times. My mom has an incredible voice, and I think I fortunately just inherited enough ability to carry pitch from her that it's just enjoyable. I like singing, but I'm not trained on it. And
That's awesome.
yeah, I like being an instrumentalist, specifically one that doesn't use my mouth to play, like not a wind or brass player, because I get emotional with music often, and I can cry while I'm playing the cello, and I can't while I'm singing. So
No, it makes sense. No, that's absolutely. Do you use your singing ability in your playing with your cello?
No, but with banjo, I am trying to do that. I've
Cool.
recorded a couple things singing with banjo, but not with cello.
Cool.
So I'm going to ask you the question that I asked Chris when I interviewed him. As an instrumentalist, when you listen to something new, do you focus more on the instrumental stuff or do you focus more on the lyrics?
Definitely the melodies and the harmonies. I'm awful with lyrics. Like my family made fun of me my whole life because like with Christmas songs, I would just belt out whatever I wanted. It was not the words at all. And my mom would be like, you've heard this for your whole life, but I didn't pay attention. I was playing the cello part to everything. So yeah, I'm really bad. The only time the lyrics, that I pay more attention to that is if I'm reading them and really focus on, the poetry behind them. And then also like with Christian music, the lyrics will move me more than secular music because I'll be singing it more often. But.
Sure.
So you started cello at 3, so I assume that you didn't have the opportunity to choose your instrument?
I did not, nor did my kids. We're just very dictatorial with instruments in our family. But my mom was the musical one between my two parents, and she had always loved the sound of the cello, and she was debating between the cello and the piano, and had a really good friend, has a really good friend who, is an incredible organist and pianist. And she said to him, what should I start Rachael on? And he said, pianists are a dime a dozen, do the cello, which is funny because he is vocationally a pianist.
Right.
And it just turned out that one of the best and most sought after Suzuki cello teachers lived in the neighborhood my parents had just bought a house in, and people were traveling, for an hour to take lessons from her, and she was, a mile and a half away. So it was fantastic. We were very fortunate.
That's great.
Yeah, that is great.
Mm-hmm.
So you forced the instruments on your kids. You obviously gave yourself a string quartet on purpose then.
Yeah, I wanted them to all start very young as well because I see a lot of benefit in starting young, and so I felt horribly guilty because I waited till they were 5 to start them. And
how dare you?
I know I lost those 2 years, but and really for them, I knew I was going to go the string instrument route because that was my wheelhouse, and I knew, especially when you start them so young, you really have to be the kind of at-home teacher and help them along, and I knew that I could do that with string instruments. So for them, it really came down to the teachers. None of my kids are cellists because there wasn't a Suzuki cello teacher in the north part of the city that I live in. And I couldn't, I had to work out logistics as well and be sensible. So they ended up with violin and viola because I found great teachers for those instruments in the area. And my middle son, he does piano because I knew from an early age that he was going to be really active in sports, and I didn't think he could balance maybe the orchestra schedule as well. So I thought piano would be a better fit for him. So, but yes, we do all play together, which is really fun.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And they're fantastic.
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of hearing them for the last several years.
That's very cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
What sort of music do you perform most? So I know you play the cello, but is it, are you more geared, do you play a lot of the classical stuff? Are you in orchestras, that sort of stuff?
Yeah. So, I have to say, vocationally, I'm a high school Spanish teacher. So by day, I am not playing instruments. So all of it for me is side gigs. And a lot of times that's in the form of church jobs, getting hired at other churches to play Christmas productions or Lent, Easter productions. So I do a lot of that. I'll play weddings, which is a lot of fun. And that, of course, is pretty much always classical music for the most part. And I've been in some orchestras since college that have been in the area, and that's always fun, but that tends to be classical or pops music as well. So with cello, that's the repertoire. With banjo, of course, it's bluegrass. So
right. And are you playing now that you've had a year under your belt with banjo, are you playing banjo more with groups or
no? Oh my goodness, no.
So
we had a bluegrass Sunday at church last summer, and I jumped in with both feet. It was the most terrifying experience musically I've had as an adult, but I was really proud of myself for doing it because you got to push yourself, get out of the comfort zone. But there hasn't been another one of those, and I haven't yet been confident enough to seek out playing in ensembles with the banjo, but I'm getting there, and it's a priority for me. I want to do it. So
and I have seen you do some TikTok
band
things, which is fun to
I
watch.
am duetting all over the place on TikTok, so thankfully there is that option.
we have to add her TikTok then to the show notes.
Yes,
anything social media related, or
Yes.
We will certainly
we'll
add,
add up to
absolutely. As far as listening, What do you listen to the most? Are you a classical person? Are you drawn to the classical stuff because you're a cellist, or do you try to find other stuff?
So I feel a little guilty saying this. I'm drawn to the classical music that I have experienced through playing. I am not somebody who explores new classical music often that I've never played. I've played a lot of orchestral music. My orchestral experience is quite vast. So I really enjoy listening to the things that I've been a part of, and I never tire of that. But other than that, I don't hang out in the classical world that much. In fact, going to like the symphony, the local symphony, I tend to pick only the concerts where I already know at least, or I'm very familiar with at least one of the things on the program. Like I'm not that interested in going to something where I know nothing. And I don't know if part of that is just because I have a really long history with classical music that I lean toward what I'm really comfortable and familiar with, and then I've kind of enjoyed exploring other genres for new stuff. So I listen to all kinds of music. I like, I mean, like I said, I'm trying to stay relevant with my son. He's really into rap, so I'm really trying to learn about that just because it gives us conversation to talk about. There's certainly alternative rock and that I really like. I'm a Spanish teacher. I really like Latin music and music that's in Spanish. Bluegrass, I'm drawn to that, and country. I mean, just a whole variety of stuff. Really ignorant on jazz. That is one genre that you are very familiar with that I am not. But
well, part of it is you have a hatred of the saxophone.
I do. That is not a secret. I'm sorry, CJ.
What's going on here? Like, was this planned ahead of time?
No,
it wasn't. It was funny because when COVID hit, we started talking a lot about music, and we would share music back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And CJ, you know me, like my go-to is like Tower of Power.
Yeah.
Check out Tower of Power. I hate the saxophone. I went, oh, but Larry Bragg is a good singer. It's like, oh no, okay.
I'm curious as to your, and I mean I respect it. I'm like I don't care, but I'm just saying, like, you have every right to like and dislike. But I'm curious of your hatred towards the instrument.
I mean, I would not, first of all, use the word hate.
No, I know,
word.
I understand that. Yeah.
It is just part of it is I'm not really into the jazz world, and it doesn't serve a huge purpose orchestrally. Like I wasn't around a lot in symphony music, sure. And it's just. I mean, there are times when I hear jazz and the saxophone, and I'm like, oh, that's nice. I like that sound. But in general, I'm just, the tone of the instrument is not my favorite.
It's fair enough.
And like you can hear the keys playing, which is distracting to me.
But
I'm
you
like,
can do
listen
that
to those keys.
You can hear the keys on brass instruments.
You can. That's true.
Yeah. I understand that. That's fair. Huh?
Not when I've worked on them. My keys are nice and smooth and.
So you're not a fan of most 80s music then, because there's a lot of saxophone in 80s music.
I am actually,
I'm joking.
No, I'm a child of the 80s, but that is not my decade of preference musically. I was much more into the 90s music.
That's so funny. I totally get that though. I mean, we all have instruments or something that we're not going to go listen to, So interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I'm sorry, CJ.
No offense. No offense taken. And it's really funny because Kyle and I were talking about this a little bit ago. I don't play jazz very well. Mm-hmm. I don't improvise very well. I tend to lean to play more classical saxophone. So I take the pieces that have been, made for saxophone, but they're classical pieces. So a lot of the stuff that I've played in the past has always been focused on classical playing, which is why I asked you about the singing, because one of the things I used when I learned saxophone was use your singing technique for the saxophone to change the sound that comes out of it. So I totally get your reasoning behind it. Absolutely. So I don't really like jazz because of the saxophone. I like jazz because of the singing and the piano playing more than anything else. Like that's what I'm into it. So
Yeah, I had a lot of teachers when I was growing up that would always say, if you can't sing it, you can't play it.
Right. Right. And not even necessarily on key, just sing it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
yeah,
the rhythm,
the
rhythmically,
rhythm.
it helps you as well.
Yep,
So, no, I
yep.
totally get it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I will say, I am fully aware that there's room to start appreciating instruments that you don't have an appreciation for with exposure. And, you know, for me, the viola is a huge example of that. As a cellist, I had no use for the viola ever. I was like, why would you ever play the viola? The cello is clearly superior.
Most orchestras have no use for the viola either.
And so, you know, I remember having a student teacher when I was in high school who was a violist, and she was directing our orchestras, and she was just saying, oh, it's not too high, it's not too low. It's like the Goldilocks of string instruments. And I said, no, like the cello has way more range. It's way richer, you know, whatever. But now that I have a son who plays the viola, and I'm attending, you know, performances with really fantastic violists, it's endearing itself to me in a different way. I mean, and so I think that would happen with the saxophone if I allowed myself to listen to it more. So Kyle, you can keep sending me all your sax music. And...
That's too funny. That's good. And you'll just keep me updated and be like, does she like it this week? Like
right.
A little bit?
Do you have a favorite cellist or a favorite banjo player that you look up to?
Oh, well, I mean, for cellists, honestly, I had such amazing teachers. I had 5 teachers. No, that's not right. 4 teachers. 3 before college, and then my college teacher. And all of them were just so foundational to my growth and progress and appreciation of the instrument, and to the exposure they gave me to opportunities. And so I think, honestly, and the relationship I had with them was just so incredible, and impactful for me as a person and as a musician. So they are probably the people that I looked up to most musically. I mean, of course, you know, I can rattle off all the well-known cellists and say, you know, I have 2 of Yo-Yo Ma's signatures in my Suzuki Book 1. And, you know, I mean, there's all of that. I mean, it's neat to meet people like that. But honestly, it's the people that I have relationships with that I kind of most look up to musically. And as far as banjo goes, I'm still learning so much about the bluegrass world. I entered it extremely ignorantly. But the teacher that I found on YouTube and have become friends with is definitely the person that I look up to and go to with all my questions and respect so much. So, and
we'll link his YouTube channel there too, because he's from what I've heard, he's a pretty awesome guy. So.
He is, yeah.
I love that answer though, because it's not like you're not naming people that are so popular that if you'll come across the name, you're talking about the ones that you've worked with. I think that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So because you are a Spanish teacher, what role does music play in your life, since you don't? Oh,
so I mean, this, you know, the way I rebelled when I went to college was in not majoring in music, because it had been like this assumption for my whole life that I was going to be a musician. Not that my parents assumed vocationally I would be a musician, but it was this assumption that music would be there always, and it always had been. And so I didn't intentionally rebel, but like it was kind of this, well, are you going to go into music? You know, everybody just assumed that, because I was just, you know, very advanced compared to most of the people around me, because I've been playing for so long. And so I knew that music was something that I could have in my life without having to have it be my life. And I also knew that I had a lot of other passions that I wanted to pursue, one of which being, you know, other languages and learning languages. And so for me, I chose to not major in music because I wanted to pursue other things and knew that I could still have music be foundational. Now, I also, however, wanted music to be really, really a part of my college experience. So I sought out schools that offered scholarships to non-majors, which is hard to find. There's not a ton of them. And I was fortunate to find a great fit for me. I went to Bowling Green State University, which is in Northwest Ohio, on a music scholarship as a non-major. And it enabled me to play in the symphony orchestra, which I wanted to do anyway. And that was like, you know, part of the requirement of the scholarship. So I was like, great. I got to take lessons from the professor, not like a teaching assistant, had a great relationship with him. And then I kind of could define how much I wanted to be involved past that, which was awesome. So, So for me, it's since the college years, since I graduated college, it's kind of been this thing that I can pursue to the extent that I have time to and that I want to. And I've taught a lot of lessons. I mean, a lot of lessons, especially before I had kids. So that was really fun to do on the side. Played in all kinds of ensembles. But I just love the freedom to do it to the point that I enjoy doing it without being stressed out that I like have to earn a paycheck, through music. Because I don't burn out that way. So
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense, actually.
Now, I think at one point I heard you say, and if this is too personal, let me know, we can cut this out. But I remember you talking to someone at church and telling them that you view your cello as like a friend.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's just because I kind of view myself with my instruments that way too, where like if I need to like talk to someone and there's nobody here, I can grab my instrument and then express myself through the instrument. So
yeah, and I mean, yes. So yes, there's the aspect of expressing yourself through music, and processing emotions through music, which is huge. There's also just this like weird aspect of the actual physical cello that has just been there for me forever, and that has allowed me, I mean, the opportunities that instrument has allowed me to do, traveling internationally multiple times, paying for a college education, playing with world-class symphonies, on stages where it's just, so it's like this companion. It's just this faithful companion that's always there, ready. And it's so patient, if I go a couple weeks without touching it, it's still there. It's still ready for me. So there's an emotional attachment to just the actual physical instrument as well as the music that I play.
Yeah, and I feel awful because I just moved. I've been in my house 7 or 8 weeks now, and you have played my piano more than I have since I've been here. So
it's time, Kyle.
Listen. I have had my saxophone. I haven't played it in years because things have been so crazy, and I need to find somebody to take care of it, like take a look at it. So, but it's forgiving. Like you said, it's forgiving.
Yep.
It is. And, it's so interesting because I feel like there's a level below which I will never go. I mean, I will never drop below a certain level on the cello because it's just so ingrained in me. And that's nice. So it's kind of like, okay, I know that I'm going to be able to do this when I pick it up, but then it's always challenging me. Like, you can do more, what more can you do on me? Keep trying and keep learning. So it's interesting. The relationship with an instrument is very interesting.
It is.
Yep. So now's the scary part. This is the lightning round.
Well, before we go into the rapid, I have a question.
Yep. Sure.
We brought up something in the last episode, and I don't know if you remember, and we were thinking of asking Rachel the question.
Yes.
Do you remember what it was?
I do. Do you?
No, I don't. That's why I just listen. I've been taking these medications for these bruised ribs. I don't know if that's making me mess up my memory.
No, it's just because you're old.
That's true.
So we were talking last week. We were talking about Amber Rubarth,
right?
And one of the questions that we, at least the one I remember, was: is there a difference between violin and fiddle, and what is the difference?
Thank you. That was it. Because I actually was asking the question in my head earlier today, and I totally forgot that was. See,
and you might know the answer.
It's the old man.
It's the old man.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a difference as far as what you're holding in your hand.
Okay.
It's a violin.
Right.
It's just the style. Is the bow different?
No.
Or is
the way you hold the bow is often different. A lot of times fiddlers will hold the bow up a little bit higher up the stick, not down by the frog in the same way. And then, yes, just the style of playing is different.
Is the bow shorter at all?
No, not to my knowledge.
Because of the way they hold it. Okay.
Yeah.
Because the reason why this came up is we were talking about being trained classically and then going into other genres of music. So as a vocalist, you learn a technique on how to sing and be able to sing for long hours or multiple times a week. But that same technique can be used throughout the different types of genre of music that you may be singing. So as someone who plays a string instrument, so let's the violin, to become a fiddler, like they play it as a fiddle, do they need classical training to do that, or is that something that is a totally different technique?
No, I don't think you need a background or a foundation in classical repertoire to do that. I think you need an understanding of how music that uses fiddle is constructed and built, and like how long breaks are going to last, and how, and you have to have an understanding of chord progressions, and you have to have an ability to improvise. I'm actually struggling a lot with this concept with the banjo because my classical training, I feel like it presents roadblocks for me with my ability to just jam on the banjo and just like improvise and come up with a
we
break.
were talking about that last week too.
That was that was actually what brought, yes.
Yeah. So it's definitely a different skill set. Now, are some of the techniques a classical violinist is using to play the same as a fiddler? Sure. As far as how you play in tune, where the notes are, how you move the bow across the string to some extent, depending. But still very different. I think that a classical violinist, some classical violinists are probably much more natural at being able to switch and make the switch and do more on the spot improv stuff, but some would probably have to work harder.
And that's exactly what we were brought up is how these musicians are doing another genre of music with this instrument. And we talked about why there's not more people trying it, but it's being ingrained, and not that they couldn't do it, but like you said, it would take them longer to get to that where someone else may be able to let that experience go. That's what I have the problem with the saxophone improvising. That's why I don't really play jazz that often, because I'm a horrible improviser.
Yeah, I also would wonder how much it comes down to also just people not being as interested in some of the genres.
Right.
I mean, somebody who's deeply rooted in the classical world, there's so much to explore there, and not everybody has the diverse, interest in leaving that world and exploring other types. It just depends on the person.
No, absolutely. I totally agree. We were just curious on that instrumental end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Jacob Collier recently too, and he was talking about his second album, which is Jesse Volume 1, where he has an orchestra. And he was talking about how it was difficult to find an orchestra that could handle his style of playing, because so much of it is improvised. And, trying to find a conductor that he could work with, that he could just, eye contact, and I'm going to play this, and that means the orchestra's got to do this.
Right.
He finally found the Metropole Orchestra, which was able to do that, and they're, that was a hard thing for him to find. And then we mentioned Bela Fleck last week, the Live at the Quick album, when he was looking for, a bassoon player and an English horn player to travel and play jazz. Like how hard that was to find, these two guys.
Right.
And I'll tell you, like when I was in college, did you have Rich Iacona as your...
Yes, I did.
I loved him. He was... So one of the things that he taught me, I studied a little bit of jazz with him. But one of the best things he ever did was he sat down one day and he took the chord structure. He just, how you take your chords, you number them 1 through 7 for one chord for each note of the scale. And we went, all right, one chord. Where can a one chord go? And it can go anywhere. So a 2 chord, where can a 2 chord go? Well, it can go to 2. It's also a substitute for a 5 chord. So I have this roadmap in my head of all these 7 chords. Where can they go? Both major and minor. And that's kind of where I sit with my improvising. So I know that if I'm playing, if I'm in the key of C and I'm on a C, I know I can go pretty much wherever I want. If I'm playing a G7 chord, I either have to go to A minor or C.
Right.
That's my choice.
Right.
So that's kind of where the chord structure of improvising comes. And then as far as the melody goes, at least for me, I think Victor Wooten says it best. You've got to have something to say, because music is a language.
Yes.
And if you don't know what you want to say, there's no way you're going to say it.
Right. Right.
And it's funny because I've dealt with that recently with these silly TikTok duets, but I've tried to put a cello part to a banjo piece. And I successfully did it 2 times to 2 different songs, because a part came to me just naturally. I just thought of a cello line. I did it. It worked well. And I've been trying to figure out a harmony line for this other piece for 2 months now. And nothing is inspiring me. I just keep listening to it, and I just don't have anything to say right now. Right. You know what I mean? On the cello for it. And so it either hits you or it doesn't for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the other thing he always said is that the only way you get better at improvising is you need to listen to more people improvise.
Right. Right.
And just whether you like it or not, you understand what a good melody is, and then you can kind of your brain just kind of adapts to it, and then it just kind of. So I played a party when I was just in college, and I remember this lady came up to me. She goes, "You must listen to a lot of George Winston," and I go, "Who?" And I'm like, I have no idea who George Winston was at the time, and I've been told that several times. I still never listened to George Winston, but apparently my improvising is a lot like George Winston's
I
stuff.
love his album December. You should
Yeah,
get that album.
she said, "This sounds like December." I'm like,
It's such a great album.
I just play the chords. I don't know.
That's funny. That's funny.
So
that's good. Yeah, no, but Rich Iacona was amazing. I mean, but to your other point, like think about Billy Joel, for example. He wrote that classical piano album that he couldn't play. He had to have someone else play the music.
Yep,
and
Richard Joo played it.
Who played it?
Huh.
Richard Joo, I believe, is his name.
Yeah.
He's so he an interesting thing about him. He is in a comedy group with a violinist, and they do a lot of like comedy skits. He's got one where Rachmaninoff has really big hands, and he's actually built this like wooden structure that plays the chords because his hands were too small
for the prelude.
Yeah,
that's a great video.
Yeah, the prelude in C sharp minor. So
that's funny.
Yeah,
cool. I had another question. I can't remember. Must not been important.
No, that you're old. So.
Oh, well, whatever.
Well, if you think about it, we can come back to it.
Do you want to do the rapid fire questions now? You ready?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Whoever wants to answer.
I've already gone through the rapid fire questions.
I will try. I'm not probably all that. I'm not going to be very decisive on some of these. I can probably tell you.
So, right.
Well, Chris wasn't either, and it took him like an hour to get through them. So.
Yeah. So don't worry. So there's about 7 questions.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward, and we'll just go through them. So
yeah, we kind of want your gut reaction to them,
right?
Because some of them are
right. If you need to elaborate, you can, but we're going with gut. I definitely elaborated on mine
for a long time.
All right, here we go. So number 1, favorite song.
Okay, can you give me like an instrument or just in life a favorite song?
Yeah, at this moment, because for me it changes.
Well, yeah, it does.
Because the answer that I gave on mine, I've changed already. So.
Dang it.
So yeah, maybe like favorite song now, like what now?
See, I suck at lightning rounds. I'm sorry.
Well, that's what makes it fun.
Can we why don't you, let's come back. That's not going to be lightning-y,
right.
but let me come back to that.
Ready?
Pass.
Pass. We'll come back. Favorite band.
Oh, Radiohead.
Okay.
I knew that was coming.
Favorite composer.
Beethoven.
Favorite album.
I'm gonna go Radiohead OK Computer. Solid album.
Guilty pleasure song and artist, or guilty pleasure song, or guilty pleasure artist.
Okay, Dueling Banjos from the Deliverance soundtrack. And I have had to I've had to defend myself over the past year for liking that song, because in the banjo world, it's like
Piano Man for the piano.
Yes. And I've just come to a point where you don't need to apologize for what you like, people.
No,
right,
that's all I'm saying.
Not.
Whatever, if you I'm a cellist who loves Paco Belcannon. That's another guilty pleasure. I love it, and I'm a cellist. That most cellists would shoot me for saying that. You just, whatever. Yeah.
What?
Don't apologize for what you like.
Most organists would shoot you too.
I know.
What soundtrack was it from? The one that you like?
Like the movie Deliverance.
Oh, okay. And it's just so listeners and I'm making sure that I'm thinking the right thing. You're talking about
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. I know that's the name, but you never.
I never ever will get tired of listening to that song.
That's great.
Not ever. And I can now play the song, and I still don't get tired of listening to the song. So.
I like the Steve Martin Kermit version myself, but
who Steve Martin, who is a fantastic banjo player.
Yep.
Yeah. Takes it onto all his sets. Queen Latifah used to talk about how in the middle of them filming, he'll take it out and be like, check this song out that I just learned. All right. Most memorable concert that you attended.
A concert that you attended, not that you performed at.
Oh, okay. That I attended, most memorable concert. I saw 2, November of 2019, right before COVID changed our world. I saw the band for King and Country. I took 2 of my kids to see it in Louisville, Kentucky, and it was a phenomenal concert. They put on a great show.
What genre of music?
That is Christian.
That is Christian. Okay. Contemporary Christian. The only reason I ask is because if I want to put it out there for other people, so if they're interested in it.
They put on a great show.
That's awesome.
Can I add one to that?
Please.
Sure.
Simon and Garfunkel, 2004.
Ooh.
Oh,
Nice.
nice.
Yes.
That's
That was
awesome.
fantastic as well.
Yeah. I had mine was Ian Anderson. I got to see him play. And but he didn't play as Jethro Tull. He played as Ian Anderson. Yeah. Cool. Most memorable personal performance.
Oh, hands down. It was my freshman year of high school, and I was in the Cincinnati Symphony Youth Orchestra playing our joint concert with the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, and so playing at Music Hall, which is our beautiful concert hall in Cincinnati. And so it was my first time playing in that venue on the stage, sitting next to a CSO player, and we played Sibelius' Second Symphony,
Nice.
which has to this day been my favorite symphony of all time. I could listen to that. That's another guilty pleasure. So it was I was on a high from that concert for weeks. It was incredible.
That's awesome. All right. Going back to favorite song.
Oh man.
If you have songs in different genres, just name the genre in the song.
We'll let you do 2 or 3.
Okay, so let's see. Well, since I've talked about Radiohead, probably my favorite Radiohead song would be Let Down. And I've already said my favorite banjo song. I actually really love Country Roads on the banjo too. I don't get tired of that either. Cello favorite song. Right now I'm really digging the Prelude to the Fifth Bach Suite. I've brought that back out and I'm playing that a lot, so I'm enjoying that. I see. I'm terrible with favorite song, favorite book, favorite movie. I just can't do those questions. There's so many. I can't pick. I'm very sorry.
No,
And that's
Failing
part of
that
why we
question.
do this, because there is so much out there that we want
There
other
is.
people to experience it. And that's,
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason we ask the favorite song, favorite band is just so other people get an idea what you like, and then maybe they'll like it too.
But see, the thing is, I don't even like saying that, because I feel like, for instance, if I say Radiohead is my favorite band, but I want to tell you all these other bands I also like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And like, I don't want to be boxed in.
Yep.
Don't box me in.
but that pulls you to the genre though, you know. So like, you know, you're a classical artist. Not everybody's going to expect you to say Radiohead,
right.
you know. And may I ask the reason that pulled you to Radiohead? Was it someone that shared it with you, or did you kind of come across them and?
It was yes. It was people that introduced me to them at the time in the 90s and during my formative years, and just the memories I have when I was listening to that music. I don't listen to Radiohead all that often now, because I've expanded my world so much musically, but it will always hold a place for me. So.
No, and it's funny because that was a conversation that Kyle and I brought up. I think in the first episode we talked about how
Yeah, it was more towards guilty pleasures, but
Right.
it was the same thing that it brought us back to a time,
right.
you know, like Bop by Hanson,
Yeah.
was one of mine, you know, and still Call Me Maybe by Carly Rae Jepsen. Like, that's one that I quote all the time. In fact, at my job, it took us forever to get our printers to print, you know, on our network, and the first printout was the Carly Rae Jepsen, you know, theme, and I was like, oh, that's fun.
That's fun.
Well, and I mean, that's what I love about music, and probably we all love about music, is how associative it is, and it just, you know, you hear something and it immediately transport you to that time.
Right.
Yep.
You know, I can hear a song and it takes me back to living in Spain, or takes me back to being in college, or, you know, reminds me of a certain person in my life. So that's the best part of music.
Right,
Yep.
right. And so to make Kyle cringe for a second, Coldplay is like that for me.
There you go.
Yeah, but Kyle doesn't like Coldplay.
And you know what? Kyle doesn't like Dave Matthews Band either, and I
know.
don't care whatsoever. You do not have to apologize, CJ,
What's
for what you like.
funny is that, like, there's like the people in the Dave Matthews Band I love.
Right.
Rashawn Ross, I love. Jeff Coffin, I love. Carter
Just not
Beaufort,
Dave
I
Matthews
love.
himself.
Dave Matthews, go away.
Oh, Kyle, it's okay.
Yeah,
And they
I've tried hard.
right.
And what I want to do now that I've got my cool headphones and my cool speaker set up, I want to go back to Dave Matthews and see, like, I want to try one more time. I've given him like 4 shots. Like, I'll give him one more shot.
Well, see,
So-
but the thing is maybe it's not the recording you should be listening to of like a studio album. Maybe you should listen to his live. Because
I've tried live and I've tried studio.
Because my brother
Yeah.
went to a live and he said it was like a 5-hour concert because they just jammed off for about 45
and
minutes.
you know,
or
like
something.
I'm all about that.
Right.
You know, Robert Randolph and Victor Wooten and all those guys
Right.
just sitting there jamming for, like, I love that sort of stuff. But his stuff,
It seems like you don't love his voice, which is
yeah,
key. If you,
but
That's a fair point.
true. But then again, when he did the COVID concert where it was just him, that was awesome. I loved that.
yeah.
But
So are you just
don't
jealous
know.
that he plays with the people he plays with, maybe?
maybe I don't know.
So it's green eyes towards Dave Matthews because he gets to play with some phenomenal musicians. That's
Yep.
too funny. I never really listened to, my brother did, but I can listen to him. Like, I don't cringe, but, that's too funny.
Crash. Try the song Crash.
That's a great
Alright.
song.
It's a great
Good
song.
song.
Yeah.
All right, I'll try it.
I'll try some saxophone. We'll trade these. the
All right.
the misery, the musical
We're
misery.
gonna need updates on all this.
That's right.
Find out where we're going.
All right, so we'll go Mad Hatter by Jeff Coffin because that's about 8 minutes long.
Great.
But why do something like that's more modern? Why not go further back and do like some Charlie Parker and stuff?
Coltrane? No, Charlie Parker maybe. I think Coltrane. I was thinking Coltrane, but Coltrane's probably too out there. That's
Yeah, Coltrane's a
Like
little
for-
wacky.
yeah. I've tried some Coltrane recently.
You know what?
I can't get
Kenny
into
G.
it.
There you go. Do some Kenny G.
There we go. Kenny G.
Get Kenny G in there. Not saying that he's not talented. He's just not my genre that I would go listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
Right.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
yeah. He can't control his breath very well.
He sure can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he's a talented player, but just not.
He's a talented breather.
But I will not listen to his music. So
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
it's like a book. Why would you ever read a book you don't like when there's a bajillion books out there to read? Why would you spend time,
Yeah.
like
Harry
life
Potter.
is too short. You've got to listen to the stuff
Well,
you
yeah,
love.
yeah. You hate Harry Potter. But then again, I did that experiment recently where I was listening to an album a day of stuff that I didn't like
right.
and trying to find out a way to appreciate what was there.
Which
you
is a cool exercise to do.
know? It was a fun exercise because I listened to stuff that I would never like. I'm not a Beatles guy. I listened to 3 hours of the Beatles.
Did you? And now, how do you feel about it?
I still hate them.
But do you appreciate? So here's the thing. So back to what Rachel's saying, it's okay for you not to like something, but did you find any appreciation in them?
Not then. More so. So I had a voice student back in the day, and he came to me and said, "I want to do the entire B set of Abbey Road."
Okay.
And he handed me the Beatles' full score, and he went, "Here, figure it out." So the full score is like every instrument. It's the guitar parts, the drum parts, everything. And I, during our lessons, I would condense it in my head and come up with an arrangement.
Sure.
And we recorded it. That I loved. And there's a great video of the Fab Faux. I don't remember who they are, but it was the bass player from the old David Letterman band was in it, and a bunch of other guys, and they did a cover of it, and it was fantastic. The problem that I have with the Beatles to me are like Mozart. They wrote so well that I find them boring.
But it's also not a crazy what's the word? It's a simplistic writing that they write so well. Like they
Right.
knew what they were doing to knock out
Yes,
good songs
exactly.
and write well. The same thing with Mozart,
Right. Yep.
which is why a lot of classical musicians aren't a big fan of him. But then, like, you look at him and you analyze it, and you're like, okay, like, this is impressive.
Yeah.
So, no, I get what you're saying. That's why I was curious.
Yeah.
Have you listened to any Beatles as by symphony, the symphonic Beatles, like any of the stuff that is?
No, I haven't.
Try that too, because
Okay.
they have a lot of albums out now that just like they did with Metallica, where they put them together.
Yeah,
I
that's
also would be curious. I saw another concert that was great. I saw Paul McCartney in June of 2019, and I don't follow him as a solo artist. The people that I went with really like his solo stuff, but he did play some Beatles stuff, and sitting there in a room listening to him play Beatles music was pretty incredible.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I wonder how you would feel in that
and
situation.
that's part of what I want to re-experience, because when I first listened to that Amber Rubarth album, it was like she was in the room with me.
Sure.
And now my setup, I have that sort of feeling where I can sit in my bedroom, my living room, or even in my studio now, and it feels like the instrumentals are here. So that's why I want to get back to the Dave Matthews, and I almost want to find like an unplugged acoustic concert of his, because I think that would lend itself better to my setup, and it would give me a place to start from that I could then wrap my head around what he's actually doing and appreciate it more.
Those were hard to find back in the day. A lot of them were were illegally gotten, from what I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm sure you can find them now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
yeah. Hey, listen, I'm learning a lot, with some of the stuff that you're throwing my way over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And, and it's led me down a rabbit hole in that genre or that player or whatever it may be. And, so like we said, this is what this is about, is introducing whether it's something we are interested. Someone may take what we say, listen to it, be like, I don't like it, but that's okay.
Yeah,
but they may find somebody
fine.
else out to listen to because
Exactly.
of that.
And by not liking it, it gives us a direction to point them in a direction that they might like.
Right.
Right.
So that's cool though. And I mean, yeah, no, good answers though to the rapid fire questions.
Oh,
a lot quicker than me.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, I'm thinking, I'm like, I should have said this. I should have said this. It's like the regret that follows rapid fire.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the fun.
That's too funny.
I have nothing else. Do you have anything else? Oh, I do have another question. This goes way back to your career. What made you choose Spanish as a language?
I also did not choose that for myself.
Oh.
My father chose that for me. I sound like I have quite the family, don't I? No, it's an interesting story. I went to Florida on vacation with my family when I was like 8. And it was the first time in my life I had heard another language. I was surrounded by Spanish. In Cincinnati at the time, in the 80s, there just wasn't a lot yet of Hispanic people that had come. I wasn't hearing it. So I'm at Disney World. I should have been interested in Disney World, but all I could do was focus on the fact that people around me were speaking a language that I could not understand. I was obsessed. I asked my family to speak Pig Latin because I was like, we need to speak something that they can't understand.
That's fantastic.
My mom said they might not understand English, and that didn't make any sense to me at age 8. I was like, everybody understands English. So we came back from that trip, and I just wouldn't quit talking about wanting to learn a language. I had switched. I was like, I want to learn French because it's pretty. And finally, my dad just thankfully picked up on the fact that this was a serious interest of mine. And in the schools, we didn't start until 8th grade, and I was much younger than that. I was about, like I said, 9. And so he found a private teacher, and he said, I will pay for you to take private language lessons, but I want you to take Spanish. I think that's going to be much more beneficial for you in whatever you choose to do. And I think it's, certainly, I mean, I was glad that he had that foresight. And so I started, and I was 9, and I started taking from a woman from Bogota, Colombia, once a week. And that's where it all began.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a great story though. Like just to come up to that. It's awesome.
Yep.
Do you know any other languages now? Because of it?
I studied French and I've studied Italian, and they are so similar to Spanish in structure and in so many ways that I haven't studied either of them extensively, but I can understand and get by with those. So
right.
Yeah.
I don't like French.
I don't like the pronunciation of French because it's not phonetical.
The songs were beautiful. I hated singing them because I was so bad at it. I was just bad at it. And respectfully, it was, if I couldn't do it, I wasn't going to sing the song. That was it. Like, because I didn't want to ruin the song in the sense. It was a beautiful song, but if I couldn't do it justice, I wasn't going to do the song. That's how I saw it. It wasn't anything against just the fact that I was.
That's cool.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
You wanted to respect the language.
Right. That's really what it is. I just wanted to respect the language.
All right. Well, thank you so
much.
This
has been fun.
Yes,
thank
thank
you.
you.
A lot of fun. Yes.
This is awesome. If we don't have anything else, I'll go through the closing.
Yeah.
And
then at the end, we'll play a little snippet of, I'm not sure yet, maybe Country Roads.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
And then maybe you can come back down the line, and we can, as we grow more, and you can join in just conversations,
Yes,
on an artist.
I can tell you. Expand upon my.
Yeah, we'll bring you back for a
rapid
saxophone.
fire answers.
We'll choose
gosh.
a saxophone artist. Right? That's good. All right. Thank you for listening to Turn on the Music, the podcast. We thank Rachel for coming in and being a part of it and allowing us to ask her all these questions. We hope that you join us next week. Follow us on Twitter at Turn on the Music and on Instagram at Turn on the Music Podcast. If you like what you heard, share it with a friend. And if you really want to help us promote the show, head over to the Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star rating. We hope you enjoy the nice 30-second clip from Rachael playing the banjo. Have a good one.